discussions around gender-based violence, the question that we ask is, where are the men? Because most of the statistics have proven that most of the time it is men who are, doing these horrible things to women. I also want to acknowledge the leaders of civil society organizations present here, leaders from the various sectors. Director, thank you very much for the generous introduction. We'll have to shorten it a little bit going forward. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've already greeted you. So, the topic of gender-based violence and human trafficking, especially of young children, is a topic that always, when it is discussed in whatever forum, it brings to the fore the fact that we are a broken society. And we need to be honest with ourselves that we are a broken society. We know that most of the time, and the stats have said that, and I've said it myself earlier on, that it's mostly men who commit this against women. But men are not a people on their own. They belong in a society, they're part of a society. So for us to be able to solve a problem, we need an approach where all of us, especially adults, people who can make decisions, work together. Government cannot do it alone. Government can legislate all it does because it's got the power to legislate, but that alone is not going to solve the problem. So the relationship between gender and violence is complex. On various occasions within the Department of Social Development, I have made the contention that gender inequalities increase the risk of violence by men against women and inhibit the ability of those affected to seek protection. I also strongly believe that there's a direct correlation between the empowerment of women and ending hunger and poverty, because if we don't empower women, we expose them to a harsh reality of having to depend on somebody else. And that person then feels powerful and that they have a right to lord over the person who needs their protection. Hence, I'm saying that it's a complex situation, it's a complex relationship that needs to be managed in that sense. However, over the last few years, voices advocating for the role of men and boys in ending gender-based violence have increased across the globe, and that's admirable. That's why, I am applauding men who are in this room taking action and others who are not in this room necessarily, but are doing something in their spaces to make sure that this is ended or it's not perpetuated. So in 2009, the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women adopted conclusions on the role of men and boys in achieving gender equality that made numerous positive recommendations, on which was, open quote, support men and boys to take an active part in the prevention and elimination of gender-based violence, close quote. The Department of Social Development believes that men and boys are critical stakeholders in the fight against gender-based violence. As such, we support Men's Forum in the province, and we encourage schools to form boys' forums. So I had a conversation with the gentleman who welcomed us. I need correction. Matthew. Yes, with Matthew, yeah. He came over to say hello, and I asked him that, the director is here, the lady who was introducing me, that part of what I would appreciate that to come out of this conference is that we at least agree on one or two, not too many, resolutions. And the reason why I'm saying one or two is so that we can implement. We don't want to impress, we want to implement and contribute to solving the problem. So at least one or two, Director, not too many, that we can align to the programs that we have already, because that will guarantee implementation. So no flimsy promises, focusing on issues, on real matters, on programs that we have as government. And you know that our programs as government are sort of cast in stone, but we can adjust them. But once we have agreed over a financial year period, we have to implement them. So that is why it's important that we are able to align to existing programs that we have. So that's your assignment. Apart from you being part of the panel, what I want from you when you're done here, please, at least 2 that we can, be able to implement together with the Men's Forum. Social development is part of national plans on men's and boys championing change. Through this program, we host boys' assemblies to create an environment for boys to express themselves. So that is an existing program already. Furthermore, we strongly believe in training and mentoring of boys, and as such, the department has a service level agreement with Scouts South Africa for the empowerment of boys with life skills and survival skills. This we're going to be, we were supposed to launch this, but I think 2 or 3 days before the president took us back to alert level 3. So we will resuscitate it and we'll invite yourselves as a forum when we do launch this. According to reports, the government's Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Command Center, a call center to support victims of gender-based violence, it recorded more than 120,000 victims in the first 3 weeks of lockdown. Matthew spoke to that, so I'll leave that detail to what he told us. Just weeks later in Pretoria, a similar call center was receiving up to 1,000 calls a day from women and children who were confined to abusive homes, seeking urgent help. Prior to the pandemic, femicide in South Africa was already 5 times higher than the global average, and the female interpersonal violence death rate was the 4th highest out of 183 countries listed by the WHO in 2016. Evidence has now emerged that suggests that cases of violence against women are increasing. So the stats are fluctuating on a daily basis, but the unfortunate reality about them is that they are on an upward trajectory. In addition, the lockdown has prevented access to civil services groups dedicated to supporting victims of gender-based violence. So in South Africa, reports of gender-based violence are often dismissed by the police. Unfortunately, I would have loved to listen to one of your speakers from SAPS, but unfortunately I have to go. But I'm sure the information can be shared with us because this is a reality that we face. I'm sure those people don't have malicious intention. It is patriarchy at work. They believe that it's a family matter and it can be solved at home. But we need to help our police. They are trained and there's laws that they have to work within and they have to respect that space. Because the most important thing that you should do is to remove the victim from that space where the person is being abused. So you can't just, talk it off, no, just go home, so it is very important that we make sure that we speak to and remind our police of work that they are supposed to do. It's not only male police, by the way. Some female police, unfortunately, do that. We as social development, we know. So we are not saying, we know. So we are not necessarily saying that the blame is on the heads of male police. I have seen it myself in some of the police stations, where a woman police officer was telling a woman that so we need to solve that problem as a community so that we understand that patriarchy also is playing a negative role in that. So experts say that domestic violence in South Africa is culturally deep-rooted and can be traced to the apartheid era as well. Grassroots movements, including the Black Women's Caucus and Women and Men Against Child Abuse, have repeatedly urged government to do more to ensure swift prosecution in cases of gender-based violence. That's another problem. We normally say that if you don't give a person justice, you actually deny them justice. So the justice system also needs to come to the party. I don't like using that phrase, but it's relevant for now. They need to come to the party and make sure that these cases are expedited through the system so that then the victims will get justice but also they are removed from that space that they need to be removed from. And we as social development then can have access to them legally and give them the psychosocial support that they need. However, I still contend that legislation alone is not enough to decrease the numbers of cases linked to gender-based violence. Most recently, in the month of August, our country was devastated by brutal murders, some we saw here, of several young women. This included the University of Fort Hare law student Nostelo Mtembi, who was 23 years old, whose dismembered body was discovered dumped in a suitcase in East London. The murder of Alisa Maruping, who was 29 years old, who was found hanging from the ceiling of a house in Stelfontein. The death of Peliswa Doli Sautana, who was 32 years old, who was strangled to death with shoelaces in Kosovo informal settlement in Cape Town. The death of 27-year-old Samantha Zungu from Duduza, who was allegedly beaten to death by her alleged boyfriend, and she was 8 months pregnant when he brutalized her to death. So it's a double murder there. I happen to be part of about 4 ladies MPLs from Gauteng. Well, me in my responsibility as MEC for social development, 2 MPLs who are responsible for oversight, and the Speaker of the legislature. We attended the court case. We had an opportunity to look into the face of that chap. You know, he was so nonchalant about it. He just didn't care. He looked at us and he snapped, you know? So you're here, you're going to support. Well, he was not saying it, but that's what we interpreted from looking at him. And he was just sitting there and hoping, well, he abandoned his application for bail. But you know the discussion that we had amongst ourselves, and we had an opportunity to speak to his family afterwards. The discussion we were having amongst ourselves was, this man is sick. He doesn't know it, but he is sick. And he needs to be attended to mentally, okay? The justice system should take place, but when he is incarcerated, it needs to go beyond that. He can't just be thrown in jail and be left there, because he's not going to spend, well, I don't know what the judgment is going to be, but let's suppose that he gets an opportunity to get out while he's not too old. What guarantee do we have that he's not going to do it again? Just by looking at his face and how he was looking at us, especially women, you can tell that he hates women. He hates women. So this is what happened. After the court case, we met his mother and 3 sisters. The fear they have of their own, well, son and brother. It was so thick in the atmosphere you could cut it. They are dead scared of him. His own family. The sisters' faces got scars all over, and we asked her, what happened to you? So that's who he is. He is mad, he's sick. He needs attention. So our approach should be multi-sectoral. We should look at, all the causal factors. And how do we do that? How do we help people like him? And how do we also help the victims? We can't focus on victims only. We'll give them protection. But the perpetrators, people who cause this, what makes them do it? What makes them get to this? What makes them believe that it's okay to do that? So we really need to, so I hope this conference will answer that question as well. So I am about to close, and before I do that, Program Director, we must also acknowledge the crisis of teenage pregnancies in our province. When one considers the factors that lead to teenage pregnancies, one realizes that teenage pregnancies are an indication of gross inequality as well. And the growing need to root out poverty and unemployment, patriarchy, gender-based violence, and femicide have become insurmountable. As parents, we wonder, when a 10-year-old falls pregnant, who is responsible? Because 10-year-olds can't give consent. So again, it's a multi-sectoral approach that is needed here. So if a 10-year-old presents at the hospital, they're pregnant, or at the clinic, if they do get there, and they're pregnant, then the nursing staff have a responsibility in law to report the case. Because it's rape, it's statutory rape. You can't just say, oh, Shamwanolo pregnant, I wonder who family. So we need to remind each other as society, as people of responsibility, of what powers we have in law and responsibilities. And we must use them, we must apply them, because if we don't, then we are failing these very people that we say that we want to protect. So as the Department of Social Development, we believe that insofar as, I've said this. So as I close, I believe the crisis of gender-based violence is one that should be prioritized by all government departments because it cuts across all sectors. Moreover, the family unit, again, that's another starting point. I'm a mother of 2 boys and 1 girl. So how you orientate your children also counts. The boys, the chores are the same. All they do is to rotate. The girl is going to wash the car just as the boys are going to wash the car. The boys are going to cook for us, whether we get stomach cramps from it or not, it's fine. But the good cooks that are going to get angry with me. But they must cook for us in the same manner that the sister cooks for us. When it comes to cleaning the house, they will decide who starts on this side and ends on the other side, and who takes from this side, but it is their responsibility, all 3 of them. And there's washing to be done. They will decide amongst themselves who does it. It's done once a week. Their own washing, it is theirs, they must do. So the rest, they must decide amongst themselves who is going to do it this week or the next week or whatever. So if you orientate your children that way, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but I'm trying. If you orientate them that way, they get to a point where they respect each other as people. Not one is the servant of the other or whatever. But men have an added responsibility. You are protectors of women. It's a role that God gave you. It's a responsibility that you have. You are our protectors. If something goes bang in the middle of the night, we all run to the boys' bedroom. It's natural, it comes naturally. They must find something to donor whoever is coming into the house with. Yeah, we'll be behind them screaming at whoever. But that's our support we give. So we go out, we are the infantry, they are the front line. Yeah, and when it's time to run away, well, unfortunately, we'll take off. So yeah, but we would have done something to shout at whatever. But the point I'm making is that it's an effort for all of us. And if we as families bring up our children that way, there's that mentality that everything that we do in life we can do together, and then we respect each other. So that concerted effort is needed to change the picture. Individuals, families, communities, from street level, churches, government, and thank you so much for an empowering prayer, ma'am. Civil organization, law enforcement agencies, justice systems, schools, corporate, all of us must pull together. We must recognize each other's strengths and build on those strengths. The responsibility that we have as government also, you need to keep us accountable. Not in a negative way. I'm an MEC of social development. If we make a commitment, and we are going to make the commitment to the conference, then this conference needs to remind us, we don't wait for 12 months and come back here. You need, and that's the reason why I asked the director to come in, because they implement. We need to have timelines that you're going to be knocking on our door. These are the areas that we agreed on. Where are we in terms of implementation? Are we making progress? Do we need to relook at our approach? So that's how we're going to help each other to make sure that we implement resolutions that will come out of this conference. So I want to wish you well, but like I said that you need to hold us accountable, I'm going to leave you with these words. I need those 2 resolutions, and Director, implementable resolutions. Not something that, it feels good to say or feels good to have on our papers. If we can't implement it, we don't even commit to it. So I hope that we will do so. Thank you very much, Program Director. This is your pen.
Thank you so much. Can we please clap hands? That was really, really a mouthful. Wow, it's good to see that social development is actually doing something. They're not just saying things, but there are programs that are in place and they're implementing. The one that really stood out for me is the boys program, the boys empowerment, because what is the point of empowering a girl, but the boys are not empowered? The ladies are going to get married to these boys that are not empowered. So it's about time that something is getting done with the boys. It's about time that boys are taught to be gentlemen at a young age. So I'm so happy to see that things are being done by social development. Thank you so much. They cook for us. Did you hear that? They cook for us. Mama's boys cook. They cook. They do the laundry. So meaning it's not just a lady or a woman's job. It's everyone's responsibility in the household. Is Herman ready for us? So I had introduced Mr. Herman Swart. So he's going to be online. This is an international men's conference. We've got partners from Ghana, we've got partners from USA, we've got partners from Nigeria, Zambia, all across the world, across the globe, because this is a pandemic that is affecting everyone. So right now, oh yeah, here he is. Hello. How are you, sir? Thank you. Over to you.
Can you guys hear me? Good morning.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. First of all, Craig, just a big thank you for the T-shirt, man. I wear it with pride. And I just want to say a big welcome to all the delegates and all the important people in the room this morning. It's a privilege for the MASLO to provide a space of safety for you in which this very important work can be done. I will just check from time to time that I will be heard. If you guys can just give me a thumbs up. Well, it seems like it. I also just wanted to make a couple of points on bringing I suppose a leisure perspective. As Sun International, we've always taken a very strong stance against violence, and lately, I'm more and more aware about the responsibility of organizations like ourselves to also be sensitive and be focused on the aspect of casinos and hotels in the place in some of the most horrific instances of gender-based violence and domestic. People don't realize, in our environment, yes, people working gets exposed to this kind of thing on a regular basis, where a husband has too much to drink and has beat up on his wife in a hotel room, and staff have to go and resolve the issue. It also happens from time to time that, from a prostitution perspective, these environments tend to be attracting the captivity, and that on many occasions you find that conflict starts between the client and the service provider in this. Please forgive me for not being too political around the subject. Come from an environment where straight talk is the only, and I do not have or are not fine the speakers might be, but I can tell you that we stand on on a daily basis. Sorry that I'm talking to you online. I turned from car yesterday and I've got a terrible and just hear what I'm suffering. I really didn't want to impose any. Just the delegates in the room, the assurance that certainly from that perspective, we do not tolerate any form of violence towards any person on our properties. In any of the cases that we are asked to get involved in, the perpetrators are removed, handed over to the police, and we give access up going forward. We do not allow this kind of behaviour to continue anyway, and we will do so. Also, from a male perspective, us men in industry an immense responsibility to coach. As alluded to by the program for handing over to me. Our young men of the world is definitely in need of somebody with kind, wise, and understanding here to help with the challenges that they face and to be available for them for advice at times when it's needed. Myself and the friends I work with pretty committed to this. I'm currently in a position where I'm fortunate. I'm mentoring a number of business executives online all over Southern Africa, and typically around the aspects of creativity. And I find more and more the importance of creative approaches solving problems that we haven't been able to solve. And I'm very fortunate to be using this tool to be able to empower men specifically to structure their lives in a way that suffer their stress and put them in a position where they've got the patience to deal with the challenges that come. Especially as a result of the COVID challenge, men often do not have the answers on how to make out of these conditions and into a future that should hope. Men, especially I think men of the older generation like myself and a couple of them in the room, has a very specific responsibility to mentor and coach, but to actually be available. Technology has made it easy to be there to read people that were from someone who says, listen, I see the challenge and I have to deal with it. It is a very basic responsibility in our society for men, older men, to serve and to be present and to be available. And with that, I just want to reiterate commitment to platform from which this message can be managed, this message can be welcomed and can be nurtured going forward, and that we will continue to give ourselves the beautiful and worthy cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is indeed an honor that Maslow has decided to be a solution. Are we still okay? Are we still feeling the spirit of saying no to gender-based violence? Are we still feeling the spirit of saying no to gender-based violence? I cannot hear you. Are we still here saying no excuse? Are we still saying act now? Act now. This is the time to make a difference. You know, MEC also mentioned, what is the root cause? These men just did not wake up feeling the way they're feeling and decided, I just want to punch my partner or abuse my children. What is the root cause? So when we come up with solutions, we need to come up with ideas on how are we going to help these men become better. How are we going to make sure that we do this collectively as an organization and as a community? So right now I am going to call Tebogo from Act Now. Leroy, is he here? Tebogo? Act Now. Clearly he's not acting now. Can you please play the song while I look for him? Is Stephanie here? So I'm gonna call Stephanie to please come forward while Tebuko is still out. So Stephanie has a friend. You can come forward. She knows how it hurts to have lost someone because of this vicious act. So Stephanie, let's clap our hands, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Leong, and this morning I will be speaking on the effects of gender-based violence on the loved ones of a victim of gender-based violence. I'm not an expert on gender-based violence, but I'm speaking from a premise of a personal experience. On the 28th of April 2017, my best friend was murdered. Her name was Karabo Mukwena. And I'm not going to go into her story much, but what I will discuss today is how her death and how her abuse had affected me, and from what I saw had affected her family. And her uncle is actually here this morning. Uncle Tsepo is there. I just want to start by saying that, as a friend of someone who is being abused, it can be quite a traumatic experience because you do not necessarily know how to provide support for someone who is in a relationship like that. People usually say, when two people are in a relationship, allow them to go through what they need to do, But you ask yourself, how do you judge between when something is toxic and when something is just normal relationship quarrels? So it can be quite difficult being close to someone who is in a situation like that. And one thing you always hear, and you'll hear people tell someone who is being abused, like, why don't you just leave, But it's not that simple. I'd want all of us to look at abusive relationships as more of an illness, as more of, I won't say addiction, but it's almost as if the victim of the abuse kind of becomes addicted to the abuse, and it's difficult because it's a psychological problem, and they need professional help. Personally speaking, Karabo's death, everything that Karabo went through, even up to today, it still affects me. It's very difficult for me to stand here and to speak about it. After her court case ended and all of that, for a long time I kept away from any gender-based violence events. I refused to speak. This is the first time that I actually speak in like many years. And the reason for that is the trauma never leaves you. The trauma of someone dying to the hands of their lover in such a brutal way never ever leaves you. Violence against women can cause long-term physical and mental health problems for the victim themselves and for those around them. It affects their children, it affects their parents, it affects their friends. Many families have had to relocate. Many women have had to leave their jobs, leave their whole lives just to get away from someone who is abusive, Okay. But going back to my personal experience, what I can say is, having someone so close die to gender-based violence and suffer at the hands of a man has affected me in many ways. For instance, in my own relationships, when someone does something small, you almost over-exaggerate it sometimes because you're not sure, is this a red flag? Is this person gonna end up being abusive, But what I wanna say, if anyone here in the room has someone who is going through that, don't just tell that person to leave, and never give up. Because believe me, they will go back. They will go back, but you need to encourage them to get professional help. And when I say professional help, like certified psychologists, not just somebody who, not even me, not someone who can say, this is what I've seen, because mentally they need help. So if you do have someone that is going through any kind of abusive situation, don't give up on them. Be there for them. And also, you yourself, you will need counseling. I've had to go for counseling because it's a very traumatic experience. It's indirect trauma, because it's almost as if you might not feel the physical pain, but you see the pain, you see the trauma that this person is going through, and it affects you. So I'd just like to end off by saying that, gender-based violence has a lot of impact and effects on the loved ones of the victim, including the loved ones and the perpetrators of, including the loved ones, of the perpetrator. Because, nobody wants to face the fact that their son has killed another woman, or their son is abusing someone else's daughter. But I'd end off by saying that if you do have someone that is going through a situation like that, just be there for them. Don't be judgmental, and never give up on them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Peace and light and love to you, Stephanie, and to you as well, Uncle Tebo. It is really sad, and having experienced that, it must be extremely hard. I'm sure you'll see there's 3 candles that are lit here. Those 3 candles represent all those victims, and also the men that do these acts. We need to send light to them so that they can heal, so that they can change. The second one represents healing. Healing. Childhood traumas that we all are going through, and we are not healing them. So we need to heal ourselves, because a broken person it leads to a broken nation. And the third one is restoration. We need restoration as a country, we need restoration as a community. So we can only do that when we start with self. You can't help the next person if you have not helped yourself. So peace and light to you, Stephanie. Peace and light to you, Uncle Tebo. I would like to call now on Mr. Tebo Mokoena. Tebo Mokoena is the founder and executive chairman of the Moving Ahead Development Agency. He is a mentor and involved in mentoring boys through their Boys to Men career path and mentoring initiative. Please come forward. Oh, Uncle Tebo. Doesn't he look good? Look at Uncle Tebo. Thank you so much.
Still in the morning. The leadership of ACT, Honorable MEC in absentia, distinguished guests, and all organizations that are here, the National Prosecution Authority, the Hawks, and all those that I did not mention. Good morning. Let me introduce myself as Tebo Mokoena. I'm the founder and the executive chair of Moving Ahead Development Agency, and I'm popularly known as Uncle Tshepo because of the active role I took after my niece was brutally murdered and banned beyond recognition, and who happens to be Steffi's best friend. After Steph's speech, I'm actually lost for words, because every time I see Steph, I see Karabo. Because Karabo was like my daughter, even though she was my brother's daughter. You know, a lot of people talk about issue of violence. I know we talk about gender-based violence, but I talk violence. People don't understand what GBV is all about. But I've experienced it because of my niece. I've experienced it because of my past partner. And my current partner allowed me to talk about this, because if I don't talk about it, I won't heal. When we had differences, she came to my house and broke windows of my car, all windows of my car. Very traumatic. She threw stones in my house windows, and my 2 daughters were inside. And you can imagine the trauma of those 2 young girls. You can imagine how those 2 young girls take me today, because I was the cause. It's like I've brought this woman to come to my house and traumatize them. So I know the impact of someone who's angry. That's why my discussion today is about anger and mental health. Let me leave that one. And I also want to talk about my son. That's why I'm saying I've experienced it. When my son was something else, he was into this cocktail flu that the flu mixtures that they do. You actually don't understand who he is. He would actually break every understand the trauma that stays with us. But then I asked myself a question one morning, and I said, what makes a person to be angry? I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatric, but I kept on asking my question, because I was also angry after all those issues about my ex, about my son, about my niece. I was very, very angry after Sandile took my niece. Very, very angry. But one morning after, I have spoken to myself, I then called my son and I said to my son, there are 2 wolves that lives inside a human being. And there's a bad wolf and a good wolf. And then my son said, Dad, which one do you think I'm entertaining more? And I said, the bad wolf. because you allow the bad wolf to take control. And this morning I want to talk about the bad wolf and the good wolf. Lots and lots of us, we entertain the bad wolf. There's two people living inside us. And that's why when we are angry, the bad wolf takes over. You change, you become someone else. And you'll always ask yourself, what have I done? Because you'll always look at yourself after you have been someone else. So let's not stand here and criticize each other, but can we then begin to work on the wolf that is living inside us? There's a bad wolf that is living inside us all. And we are entertaining the bad wolf. Because when you are angry, you don't become yourself. I look at some people when they are angry, they actually bang the table and scream and scream and scream. And mothers, they will scream to young boys, and they'll actually remind them that they look like their fathers. How do you expect this young man to grow up every time you remind him of his father who has never supported him? Do you think this young man, when he grows up, he'll be a good man? He won't be, because you always remind him that you are like your father who was never home, your father who has never raised you, your father who's bad, your father who's this. Because I always ask myself, all these beautiful women who have carried us for 9 months, taught us how to walk. Some of us, they've gone to an extent of breastfeeding us, taught us how to eat and do so many beautiful things. But when we grow up as men, we kill them. Why? It's because we are angry. We are raising angry young boys. We are allowing these boys to entertain the bad wolf. There's a bad wolf that is living amongst all of us. Whether we like it or not, I know some of you will say, Uncle Tsepo is talking something that is not me. But look at yourself when you are angry. What do you do when you are angry? Some women, when they are angry, I'm sorry, I'm not attacking you. They'll even tell you as a man that your manhood is so small, I was making you a favor. That's when you are angry. That's when you allow the bad wolf to take over. That's the evil spirit when it comes inside you and you actually not become yourself. And that's why a man will stand up and push you and take out a knife and do horrible things to you. Can we all agree that we are going to fight the bad wolf? Yes. It is the bad wolf that made these young men to decide to fight our daughters, because a young girl will decide that this man or this young man, I don't want to date him anymore, for whatever reason. Lemanzu will ban a poor, beautiful young girl beyond recognition and dump her in the open field. And we are going to be portrayed as trash. Sandile Manzui was taken over by the bad wolf. that young man who killed Sohofazo and hanged her while she was pregnant. That was the bad wolf that was in control. Why are we men allowing the bad wolf to take over? If you are angry, why don't you walk away? I always tell my woman that sometimes when you are angry, you just have to look at the rear view mirror and say, it's okay, and just drive on. You don't have to be angry. And sometimes it's okay to be angry, but anger does not have to make you to be cruel. Not at all. If you are angry, just go out maybe and have a beer or whatever with your friends and come back and apologize to your partner and say, my baby, I know I've wronged you. I'm so sorry. But we men, we want to take their lives. We allow the bad wolf. And I know the bad wolf is living inside us. We allow the bad wolf to take control. Ladies and gentlemen, can you promise me that as from today, we are going to embrace the good wolf that is living inside us? There are two people living inside you, the bad and the good. But it's so unfortunate that the bad is more powerful than the good. It is the bad that will make you to scream. You know, other people, when they talk to you, they scream. It's so nice when somebody has made or said something wrong to you, to take a break, and 15 minutes later and say, baby, I didn't like how you spoke to me. That's when we embrace the good wolf. But when she screams at you because of whatever reason, even though you are wrong, but all what you do as a man, you want to show the muscle. And naturally, we as men, we don't apologize. Do you know that? We don't. Poor women, they'll forever apologize. They'll forever humble themselves. And I'll give you a typical example. Any man who's in this room, if you find your woman with another man, you'll never forgive that woman. Never, ever. But women forgive us. Women forgive us. It's because we are entertaining the bad wolf as men. Women are forgiving. But all what we do as men is we want to use the muscle to fight back. We allow the bad wolf to take control. If you are a man sitting in this room today, just say goodbye to the bad wolf and say hello to the new and good wolf. You can be how angry, control your temper. It is the good wolf that's going to make you a gentleman. It is the good wolf that embrace the bad wolf. Every time your wife calls you, you shake because you don't know what she's going to say. Let's stop killing our mothers. Women are our mothers. Women, they cook for us. Women, they make bed after us. My partner always says to me, you know, Daddy, I always make things after you. Can you change? And sometimes, in the beginning, I used to get irritable. Because I say, why is this woman saying this to me? But that's That's when the bad wolf was taking in control to say, tell her where to get off. But the good wolf will come in and say, humble yourself, Daddy. Just humble yourself. Just say, Mom, I'll do it. Mom, I'll make the bed. She knows I make the bed. We have a routine. If I wake up after, I make the bed. If she wakes up after, she makes the bed. And that's what we need to do as men. We must be loving. We must respect our women. We must respect our daughters. We must change our boys. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I've taken a lot of your time. Can we stand up and pledge to the good wolf, please? Can we stand up and pledge to the good wolf? Can we say no to the bad wolf? No to the bad wolf. Yes to the good wolf.
Yes to the good wolf.
Thank you so much. I love you guys.
Thank you. Does he make the bed? He does. Woo-hoo! He makes the bed. Thank you so much. All right, now time is not on our side. I would like to call on Major General Marsha from the SAPS. It's not here. Okay. Sure, yeah. Ne? Okay, then I will call on Craig. Craig Wilkinson, founder of the Father of the Nation. 2019 GQ Humanitarian Award winner. No wonder, makes sense. A best-selling essay author, inspirational speaker, and dad coach. Please come forward. Thank you. I'm going to use this one. No excuse.
So much. I feel like I've been vaccinated twice and I've had COVID, so I can take my mask off. Thank you so much, Hillary, for all who have set up such a beautiful conference. And thank you for all who are attending and all who are watching. This is a great cause. It's a human rights cause, isn't it? It's human rights. I love to say to people there, we get so caught up in race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, politics. We're human first. We're human first. Before any of those things, we are human beings. And when one human being abuses another human being, it's a human rights violation, and we need to deal with it. I want to start by saying something that shouldn't be controversial, but maybe. We don't need, in this current world of ours, in this current epidemic, we don't need less masculinity. We need more masculinity. We need real men. You see, true masculinity never ever abuses. It loves, it serves, it honors, it protects, it provides. It doesn't judge on the basis of anything other than humanity. It protects a fellow human being. We need real men. We don't need to reinvent masculinity. We need to rediscover masculinity. If you look at the men of old, you look at the Titanic when it sank, do you know that 19% of the women on that ship died? 75% of the men. One of the reasons? Men routinely gave up their places for women. They protected the woman. You see, that's true masculinity. What we're touting as true masculinity is not it. I want to talk quickly about the six-pack of masculine virtues. I'm not talking about the six-pack that you might have here. Oh, you're disappointed. I'm not talking about the six-pack that you drink. I'm talking about the 6 virtues that make a man a true man. That's all right, isn't it? Huh? You prefer the six-pack? We've got some work to do on our women as well as our men. The six-pack of masculine virtues. Number 1, these are the things that make a man a real man, a good man. Number 1, he uses his strength for good. You see, men have strength. We've seen that. Men physically, upper body strength is normally up to 55 to 60% more than a woman. There's a strength there. And that's a sacred trust. Any strength we have is a sacred trust. Political power is a sacred trust. Would you agree? We vote people into power to serve the people. They're public servants. When they use that power for their own gain, it's an abuse. It's a toxic misuse of power. Same as masculinity, we have strength. You know, men, our words have strength. Our presence has strength. When I'm there for my daughter, there's a strength. When I'm not there for her, there's a weakness. There's something I'm denying her. Our presence, our words, our psychology, emotionally, physically, we have strength. What do you do with your strength? You see, what makes a man is not how much strength he has. I'll help to disappoint you. It's not the size of the bicep. It's the size of what he does with his strength. That's what makes a man. You see, there are three ways a man can use his strength. He can fail to use it. And so many men fail to use their strength. They see something going wrong and they turn a blind eye. They have a child and they run away from the child. They fail to take responsibility. They fail to use their strength. Number one, they can fail to use their strength. A lot of men disappear into all kinds of addictions. We spend our hours working, gymming, drinking, gambling, golfing, whatever. Some of these, are good pursuits if we do them well, but we spend our time doing that instead of spending time with doing the things we need to do. We're failing to use our strength. We're standing in a group of people and we hear racist, sexist, misogynist jokes told. We shut up, we don't say a word. We see something going down that's wrong, we don't stand up. We fail to use our strength. Second thing that a man can do is he can misuse his strength. He can use his strength to abuse, to take what's not his, to dominate, to never be wrong. How many of you guys battle to say, I'm sorry, I do. Or say, I was wrong, I made a mistake. We need to be able to do that. And you see, the only good way a man can use his strength is to use it for good, to love, to serve, honor, protect, provide. You see, men are designed to be dangerous. We're meant to be dangerous. Never to women, never to children, never to each other's brothers. Never to society, dangerous to whatever threatens women, children, society. Hey? Racism should fear masculinity. Hey? Prejudice should fear masculinity. Abuse should fear a true man because he's dangerous to whatever's dangerous to a woman, a child. Hey? That's the number one quality of a man. He uses his strength for good. Number two quality, he tends his fields. Every man has a field, man. A field, the area in which we are responsible for. In that field, there are people. There are material goods. There are roles and responsibility. Ourselves, we are in our fields. And we need to tend those four things. Number one, look after ourselves. Men, we're very bad at going to see the doctor. We go half the time that women go. Clinics, AIDS clinics, man, I see a lot of men, a lot of women going, a lot of men are scared to go. We need to look after ourselves because we're important men. We're important, man. We play a role. Society needs us. Men and women are equal, but stunningly different. We both need it. We co-create a beautiful world. As men, we need to look after ourselves, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, our psychological health, because we're needed. Our family needs us. Our society, our country needs us. Look after ourselves. Look after the people in our lives. Every single person should feel safe in the presence of true masculinity, because true masculinity protects, it loves, it serves. You're safe in my presence. You're safe with me. That's what a true man says. He looks after the people. He makes the people in his presence feel good. Number three, he looks after his material goods. He doesn't squander his money on gambling and fast cars. He uses it well to educate the future, to create a future for himself and his family. And thirdly, he takes his roles and responsibilities. If he's elected into a power, he takes it very seriously. If he's a father, he takes it very seriously. A husband, he takes it seriously. He looks after and he cares for those responsibilities. Number two, he tends his fields. Number three, he judges himself by character and not by his possessions or image. We live in a world where it's all about, the four big lies about masculinity are sex, power, money, and big boys don't cry. Men, do you recognize those lies? Huh? You grew up, you're defined by your success sexually. You're defined by how much power you have. You're defined by how much money you have. And by the way, big boys don't cry. Don't be vulnerable. These are all lies. Absolute lies. The poorest man can leave behind the richest legacy. Why? It's not what you leave for somebody, man. It's what you leave in somebody. It's your character that determines your worth and your value. And we need to, as men, define ourselves not by our clothes, our car, our image, by our sexual conquest. We need to define ourselves by what is my character? Am I a man of my word? Am I a man of integrity? Do I have values and do I live by those values? How do I treat people in my life? That's the third characteristic of an authentic man. The fourth one, I'm doing a weekend seminar in 5 minutes here, so forgive me. The fourth characteristic is he builds a band of brothers. You know that men commit suicide 4 times more than women? You know that? Not just locally in South Africa. This is a global phenomenon. And in fact, South Africa at the moment was recently had the second highest suicide rate in the world, next to Russia. Men are killing themselves at a record rate here. In the UK, the leading cause of death of men under 50 is suicide. And one of the reasons we commit suicide, men, is we're not vulnerable to each other. We don't share our issues. We carry our burdens. You get 2 ladies get together, they meet, they have a glass of wine. Before you know it, their whole life story's out there, man. You get 2 men who meet each other, and what do? They're talking about soccer and rugby and women. There's nothing about the heart coming out. we need to form a band of brothers. You know, no soccer team ever won a match with one man, did it? And the ones that try always lose, eh? The individualists, you know, you watch the top soccer player, and they hardly ever keep the ball. They pass the ball. We're part of a team. We're part of a band of brothers. And true masculine is about forming a band of brothers. And 4 quick keys there, man. To form a band of brothers, we need to honor each other as men. Revel, brother, I honor you, man. Eh? You're a good man. I mean, you make me look scruffy by the way you dress. Eh? But that's not all, man. You know, we need to honor each other as brothers. We don't do that, do we? We tease each other all the time, eh? And that's fine. I mean, teasing is good. It's part of a brotherhood, you know. Men's love language is different to women's, you know. You never say, I mean, you know, you don't often see what I've said there, you know, compliment another man's outfit, do we? You know? But we need to honor each other as men. We need to sharpen each other as men. You know, there's a biblical verse that says, iron sharpens iron, and when 2 men come together, they sharpen each other. You know, I see my brother straying a bit there. I say, hey, brother, that's not cool, man. I'm sharpening him. He calls me out when I'm doing something wrong. We sharpen each other, you know. We sharpen each other. Number 3, we must be vulnerable to each other. I had a friend a while back who committed suicide, 3 years back. 56-year-old man committed suicide. And at his funeral, we were chatting to each other, and we were saying, did you know that Pete was going through such a tough time? And they said, no. He said, did you know? I didn't know, you know. We did not allow each other the permission to be vulnerable to each other, to share each other's burdens. Had Pete managed to share with us, it was such an indictment on us as a group of friends. If we had shared, he'd shared his burdens, we would have carried him together. He may well be alive today. We need to be vulnerable to each other, honor each other, sharpen each other, be vulnerable to each other, and stand for each other, man. We're in this thing together. You know, there's no good having friendship when things are going well, but when things are going tough, man, I abandon ship. We need to stand for each other. The 5th thing, and forgive me again for rushing this, the 5th thing is that true masculinity mentors the next generation. We mentor the next generation. You know, when I was in youth leadership many, many years ago, I had a conversation with a young guy, Brett, 16-year-old boy. And Brett was he's a troubled young man, and he had the kind of relationship with his father. His father was there but not there. You know those fathers. They're there but they're not there. They're either behind a newspaper, a laptop. They're just not engaged emotionally. And he was a troubled young man, and he told the story. He went away on holiday when he was 12 years old to Port Alfred, and he saw a bunch of boys fishing at this river, and he wanted to fish as well, but he didn't know how to fish, and he had no one to teach him how to fish. So he went to his mom's cupboard, and he found a pin, and he bent the pin, and he tied a piece of string to the pin, and he got some bread, and he rolled it up, and he put the bread on the end of the pin, and he went and he sat by the side of the river trying to fish. And we all know that you can never catch a fish with a bent pin. And he sat there hour after hour getting more and more despondent. Now, can you imagine if a man had walked past Brett and said, what are you doing, young man? And he said, I'm trying to catch a fish. And he said, no, that's not how you catch a fish. And he sat down on the banks of the river, and he pulled out his fishing kit, and he took out a proper hook, and he took out some line, and he said, you know, this is how you do it. And he showed him how to tie the knot. He showed him how to cast it in, how to bait it, and he caught some fish. Brett's life would have been so different, having a man to teach him how to fish. That story didn't end well. Brett ended up taking his own life. At the age of 21, he climbed up to the top of a mountain and jumped off and killed himself. And part of the reason, a big reason, that's what South Africa faces. You know, we have up to 60% of our children growing up without a father. What an indictment on men. Brett's life would have been totally different if he had a man, older man, not necessarily biological father, older man to teach him how to fish, to teach him how to do life. We as men need to teach younger men how to do life. How to do life. Mentor the next generation. And finally, number 6, what men need to do, true men, is make the world a better place. You see, everything we have is designed to make the world a better place. I love what you said about kings. We need to be kings as men, but we need to be kings that serve. Kings that serve. Forgive me, I'm not preaching to you now, but I love the story of Jesus Christ, you know, who was the most powerful man on the planet. God incarnate. What did he do with that power? He got on his knees and he washed feet. And that's what you and I as men are designed to do. Wash feet. Serve. Love. How does your wife feel in your presence? What kind of impact do you have on your wife? Is she a better woman because you're in her life? What kind of impact do you have on your children? Are they flourishing and thriving and growing? Are you calling them out, seeing them, loving them? Are they growing up to be a great man and a great woman because you're in their life? What kind of environment do you work in it? Is it better because you're in it? Your job. Do your colleagues welcome you? You know, Oscar Wilde said a very funny thing. He said, some men bring joy wherever they go. Others bring joy whenever they leave. We need to be men who bring joy wherever we go, who bring light and life and blessing wherever we go. And that's what true masculinity does. So we need more men, and we need more real men. I cry when I look at this audience, man. There are more women than men in this audience. We're preaching it to the converted. I honor and applaud the men. You know, Martin over there is doing fantastic work with his Matrix men. I applaud the men that are here, especially since there's a rugby match on and we're missing it. But we need more men. Men to stand up, men to be real, good, true men. Men who live with a six-pack of champion virtues. So thank you so much.
Now, wow, this is a men's conference. This is really a men's conference. Thank you so much, Craig. I got to understand what men really do go through. Six-pack, six-pack, six-pack. Bianca, is Bianca here? I think we need to dance now. We have been sitting down. Most of you guys are worried if, you are still fighting against gender-based violence or you're falling asleep. So Bianca, please come forward so that we can dance and we can really celebrate this main conference, because we need to celebrate our kings as well. Let's not just victimize them. Let's not just see the negative, but let's see the good as well. The good that they do for us. So Bianca, oh, and she's looking gorgeous. Look at her. Yes, Bianca. Wow. Look at that. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me here. It is an honor. And Cheryl, good to see you. So good to see all the faces. I'm a young girl. I'm going to be 40 on Wednesday.
Oh, so look at her.
But I'm so... When I got the call to be here and to sing a couple of numbers, she says, listen here, you must come do some lekker numbers because this is serious vibes. So you need to come and bring the energy. I am the energy. Always they book me for the energy. But I'm going to sing a song that I think is so appropriate, that, when things are lost and when people are hurt, it is the dream that gets missed. It's the dream. It's the millions and millions of dreams that are damaged and thrown away and forgotten. And I'm going to start with A Million Dreams because I think it's so appropriate in this moment. I did have another song. It's called All God's Children, which I'll probably do later. But I'm going to sing this one. It's from The Greatest Showman. And it goes like this.